Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Warwick F1 show. Today it's my turn, Chinmay's turn to host this episode. And so pretty much we're just going to be doing a quick catch up on all the latest news that's been happening, especially with one breaking news that's just broken out as we are pretty much recording. With Adrian Newey set to leave Red Bull amongst all the current allegations and practically a civil war that's happening in Red Bull at the moment. We'll also be talking about the new 2025 calendar that's been released recently, as well as Alonso's extended contract, which is adding extra speculation about the driver market for 2025, considering the bombshells we have had in this season already. Obviously, I can't do this alone, so today I have Callum joining, and as well as Oscar, who's obviously returning for another episode with us. So I suppose the first thing I'll put out to the floor is, what is your initial reaction to Adrian Newey leaving Red Bull amongst all the let's just call it events that are happening in the Red Bull behind the scenes at the moment?
Well, first off, I think someone's offered him a god load of money, because you can imagine how well paid he must be at Red Bull for someone to turn his head and for him to turn his back on the winning team. But, to me, there's only really two options where he's going to end up. It's either going to be Aston Martin or it's going to be Ferrari. Ferrari probably the more realistic of that option, considering he's expressed a desire before to work with Hamilton, and I'm not sure he'd want to work with Stroll as much as I love him. He's obviously one of the top engineers. He is probably the top engineer of a generation of Formula One. So, obviously very exciting. Maybe something to look forward to in the future if he can help a team compete on the same level as Red Bull.
I mean, certainly my first reaction was more about, I think, rather than seeing what team he would go to next, was hoping for, well, not hoping, but just wondering if this would be kind of a demise for Red Bull, because I guess we've been, obviously, well, there's no doubt that they've just completely dominated, I say Red Bull, Max Verstappen, but that Red Bull team has completely dominated the entire field for the past few seasons, since obviously their big rival, Verstappen's big rivalry with Hamilton in 2021. Since then, it's been all Red Bull, and he's certainly almost one of the main architects of that success with the engineering feats that he's pulled off with that car. And since the new regulations coming in, and he's just made that car miles ahead of what anyone else can have built. And we almost, not that we want Red Bull to, we don't want Red Bull to kind of drop off. It's not like we have a kind of a hatred for Red Bull. It's more the fact that we want the sport to be more entertaining, and one possible way of that happening is that if either teams catch up to Red Bull or if Red Bull drop off, and this could be one of the big turning points in that means that they start to drop off of their complete dominance that we've seen, as I say, over the past few seasons. So I think that was definitely my first reaction seeing the news, is how would this affect Red Bull? Obviously, we can expect it to be more adversely. But then, again, another big question, which we haven't seen so far, is where is he going to end up? And certainly, how is him being in the team going to give that leap forward for wherever that team is in the field onto certainly the next level of racing and beyond.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think especially with Max Verstappen's continued dominance in the last few years, it's kind of, you can say a lot of fans are maybe starting to lose interest in the sport again. Obviously, we've had this with Michael Schumacher's dominance in the early 2000s. We've had, obviously, Sebastian Vettel's dominance in the early 2010s, followed by Lewis Hamilton's and Mercedes. And now we've got the dominance of Max Verstappen, which arguably is the most dominant of them all so far, considering how far ahead Red Bull being, obviously, with machine that is, Max Verstappen, the leadership of Christian Horner, the design capability. Obviously, we have pretty much the greatest F1 designer of all time, Adrian Newey, at the helm of obviously building that and designing any upgrade to that car as well. And yeah, I suppose it is the biggest thing. It's not just to do with probably how Red Bull are going to fare after with Adrian Newey's departure, especially with the new regulations coming up, but obviously with the current situation that's been happening at Red Bull with Horner's allegations. And yeah, obviously I'm not going to dive too much into it now because we still don't have all the full information about what exactly is happening, but yeah, it is pretty much a civil war happening from as far as the media's been saying. But yeah, obviously, and for a person like Adrian Newey of that high reputation, and he's been with Red Bull pretty much since the start. 2005 is when he joined the team, so obviously 19 years. So obviously it is a big one. I mean, do you reckon he'll be heading down to Ferrari or Mercedes or Aston Martin, or do you think this might be the end of the road and he might actually just retire and just live his life now? I suppose.
I mean, I'd say that it might be. I can't see him going to any smaller teams as such. I mean, obviously, probably the money that he's asking for is probably only a few teams can actually afford. But it's I'd say it's got to be Ferrari. I'd say he's certainly going to go to where he thinks the future lies, and I think from what Ferrari has shown from perhaps over the past few seasons with their inconsistencies and their mistakes and potential as well, some lack of reliability in the car, which meant that they haven't been able to take that step forward of consistently winning races. We obviously know that they're capable of winning races, but it's that consistency and that almost faith and dependence on the car, which you see in any team that's going to be winning a world championship or a constructors championship. You see Red Bull last season and the seasons prior having pretty much no DNFs, no reliability issues, because and especially in the performance that car's had. And so I'd say Ferrari would definitely be after him. And I think because that's almost really the only other thing that they need in a way, or not other thing that they need, but it's certainly a big role that has been filled with Hamilton coming in next season. And then if Adrian Newey were to go as well, then this would be almost the final step, you could say. Then you could almost predict that Ferrari are at least going to be challenging for world championships back where they want to be. And so I think definitely Ferrari would be the team that goes after him. Whether Adrian Newey wishes to go there or wishes to retire, that's up to him, and it's hard to know what he would want to do from that respect. But I'd say Ferrari are certainly the top contenders in terms of and who's going to be after him in the hiring basis of the different teams of any team on the F1 grid at the moment.
I mean, I personally think that even if he does retire, it will be, it will kind of open up the playing field. It'll be like, well, the one guy who's regarded as like above all others in helping design F1 cars is gone. And that will kind of, I feel, whatever happens now, it will make the sport more competitive, and that we can all collectively look forward to that, no matter what team you support. I mean, because it definitely needs it right now.
Yeah, no, like I said, I'll pretty much reciprocate what you both are saying. I suppose even though it's not nice to see a seasoned veteran of our sport leave a team that he's been with for so long and stuff, but it probably hopefully does level the playing field out, and hopefully all this stuff does get resolved as soon as possible, because at the end of the day, it is actually overall possibly starting to damage the reputation of the sport even more, and F1 as a whole, more than it really should be now. But let's see how that all goes anyway. Unless anyone else has something to add about this whole new situation.
I'd say it's if anything, it's more kind of disappointing the circumstances that it's come about, because it's obviously another nail in the coffin for Red Bull that has come from these allegations of Christian Horner, something that we thought had been all done and settled with the investigation, the internal investigation of Red Bull, which must be definitely a couple months ago now, and the effect that that's had on that team is remarkable, and we can certainly, I think, maybe see more to come after this. Really, it certainly doesn't seem like it's going to end here, and really unfortunate that these kind of politics and the events outside of the sport are going to inevitably lead to the performances in it. And although yes, it's definitely going to be good for the sport from a competition point of view, I think it certainly kind of leaves a bit of a bad taste in everyone's mouth from the circumstances that it's come about, for sure.
Yeah, fair enough. So I guess we can move it on now to our second headline, really. Obviously a bit less breaking, but we have the 2025 F1 calendar now released, or at least provisionally, obviously in unless there's any last minute cancellations or anything like that. I suppose the main sort of changes that we are seeing to the calendar is Australia has moved to be the season opener for the first time in quite a while. I think first time since 2019 that it's going to be opening the season. But yeah, so China's moving to the second race, followed by Japan, with Bahrain and Saudi Arabia now moving to the fourth and fifth race of the season. Another probably big one will be that Belgium is now moved further back early into the calendar. So no longer being the race after or before the summer break, is now the second to last race before the summer break, with Hungary preceding the summer break before we head to Zandvoort. Other than that, we're not really having much of a difference in the calendars. But yeah, I thought I'd just open it, see. I guess I can start with Oscar, see what do you have any opinions on what the calendar looks like?
I think it's to be honest, quite an improvement. I mean, Australia as a starting race is definitely one a lot of people like one I particularly like as well, and the rest of the calendar's change has been quite good. Having China and Japan very early on, I think, are both pretty good circuits as well. And then, as you said, most of the calendar remains the same, which I feel it should. Besides the start and the end, it's the consistency of when these races are. Obviously, they've moved Baku back again, but that, I mean, it's not the most thrilling race in the world, so that's fine. But obviously, in an ideal world, I think most people would probably want Qatar and Abu Dhabi not to be last in the season. But besides that, I think it's like a genuine step forward and genuine improvement in the calendar.
I agree. I certainly think it's an improvement. Obviously, it's definitely up to personal preference with what races people prefer. But I think probably a lot of people can agree on tracks like Spa and hate on the tracks like Abu Dhabi and Qatar for the end of the season. I think personally, I'm quite happy to see Melbourne back to the first race of the season. I think it's certainly I can remember more specific moments and remember specific races from Melbourne in comparison to Bahrain, and I think it's definitely quite an exciting track, which is good to look forward to for the start of a new season. But then on the contrary, I do think that perhaps it's not good to have Belgium as the penultimate race, and then as well that meaning that Zandvoort is the race that we have after the summer break. Because I think personally, I'm not the biggest fan of Zandvoort. I mean, it's very kind of a very tight circuit, quite limited overtaking opportunities, and not really delivered on a level that we know that Spa has previously. And so I think definitely I would prefer to see Spa at the as the race that we come back to after the summer break. I really think that was a good race to look forward to for after that 4-week gap. But yeah, apart from that, it's staying the same, which I think is overall quite a jam-packed and race season, which has certainly a lot of potential.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, yeah, I suppose. Probably just quickly mention what I think, and yeah, I feel like the only this as long as Abu Dhabi can be rid of in the calendar, and obviously I don't really like Abu Dhabi at all, which I think a lot of F1 fans can reciprocate. I mean, yeah, as quite often on the show, we do like to express our love for Yas Marino, but obviously, yeah, and yeah, and maybe 24 races might be a bit long, but obviously, yeah, it is a step in the right direction, and hopefully, it will provide us a season of good racing, and hopefully we can get a good title race. But obviously, considering with Max Verstappen's current form, I doubt it. But let's see. But yeah, I guess we can move on to the next piece of news. That Fernando Alonso has now confirmed where he will be for next season, with staying at Aston Martin and signing a contract extension into 2026. The oldest, obviously, being the oldest driver of grid, being around 43 years old and 42, 43, and yeah, he is still going strong, and he does not seem to be slowing down anytime soon. So, I guess again, I'll open it to the floor. What do you think he should? Do you think he deserves to stay at Aston Martin? Do you think he should have gone somewhere else? And what do you think? And what do you think it's going to be doing to the silly season? Obviously, considering we've had a few bombshells, predominantly Lewis Hamilton replacing Carlos Sainz at Ferrari for next season. So, I guess I'll just open up to see what your opinions are on this.
Yeah. Well, I personally am very grateful for the fact Alonso is staying at Aston Martin. I'm an Aston Martin fan, and he's kind of leading the charge towards becoming a much better team, and he's clearly still got the ability to compete at the very top, to go for podiums, to go for big points hauls when maybe the car is like fifth fastest on the grid, but he's still able to achieve quite a lot. He's still able to get a lot out of this team, and he's doing really well. That's all I've got to say, really.
I don't know about everyone else, but I find, particularly the timing of it and the decision from Alonso, I find it quite peculiar, because he's clearly there's no doubt that he's clearly still one of the best drivers on the grid, and certainly one of the more consistent drivers on the grid, I guess, coming with that experience. But especially with how the driver market is shaping up at the moment, you think at least he would wait a little bit longer to sign a new contract, to just kind of see what his options were out there, because a bit like what Hamilton was in the move to Ferrari, I think when a driver is coming obviously to the latter stages of their career, they're going to want to be in a seat where they can be winning races and maybe even challenging for the world championship, because and they want to be doing that immediately, because they haven't got many. They know that they haven't got many seasons left at the ability that they have within them, and so I'm just very curious as to why what Alonso's reasons were exactly to stay at that team, because I don't necessarily think that Aston Martin are going to be anywhere near winning races, winning championships in the next couple of seasons. Certainly while Alonso is there. Obviously, we know that they've made very big strides in the past few years, and have definitely done a very good job improving that car. But they're certainly nowhere near to breaking that kind of top 3, top 2, I think. Especially, as we mentioned in the last episode with Lance Stroll at the team. But especially with what's going on with Red Bull at the moment, and just the other teams, and as we mentioned, how the driver market seems to be shaping up quite a bit, and I don't think it's going to stop really for a while. You think he would almost just put his name out there a bit more to the top teams, and it's just curious as to why he's looked to secure himself so early. I think personally, I don't know whether we think could he have done much better in a way.
I do completely agree with what you're saying as well, but I guess probably one thing that will probably load Alonso back to stay at Aston Martin is probably money, and apparently there's a lot of rumors go around that he did is especially And yeah, especially with like probably the rumors that Lawrence Stroll probably has given Alonso the capacity to stay on like probably like some sort of role after he finishes driving or something like that as well. So maybe trying to see out his days in Aston Martin and then move on, transition to more like an advisory role or something like that. Probably more like an Alan Prost or Niki Lauda type role. Niki Lauda had a Mercedes type and that sort of stuff. But obviously, we'll have to see how it goes. I mean, obviously, and considering probably that the only real option that he probably had is Mercedes, and Mercedes aren't really doing too well at the moment. I feel it might actually be the right decision for Alonso to stay at Aston Martin, because it does seem to be the best option at the moment, considering Ferrari obviously is locked in, McLaren's pretty much locked in, and Red Bull look very, very unlikely.
I'm not sure. I feel like I could have maybe seen him go into Red Bull a little bit, only because I don't think that Sainz, I'd say, is their main prospect. But then I'm not sure Sainz would want to go there, because that's kind of another second driver role for him, knowing that inevitably he's going to be put behind Max Verstappen. And so if they were to kind of let go of Sergio Perez, obviously we discussed this in the last episode, is whether they would feel the need to do that, because he has been very good this season. And you think that Red Bull would at least kind of would consider that option, because there's certainly no doubt what an experienced and consistent driver he is, and that's almost what Red Bull are looking for, and that's it, is a consistent driver that can score points and challenge when he needs to. When Verstappen has an issue or retires, he's the one there to pick up the pieces. And there's certainly obviously no doubt that Red Bull is the team to beat at the moment, and that's the car that probably everyone wants to be in. So I don't know. Maybe I personally could have seen him at Red Bull, but then you think that maybe Alonso, if Red Bull were reaching out, then he wouldn't at least immediately go to sign the contract with Aston Martin. You think he'd at least wait it out a little bit longer. So maybe those talks haven't happened. But yeah, maybe like you say with Aston Martin, it's maybe more thinking after driving as well, as being the case for the reason for signing the new contract.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I suppose I'll probably ask one final quick question to Oscar about whether he agrees about whether Aston Martin might have been the best option for Alonso just to stay there, or whether he should have looked at another option.
I mean, that's really difficult to say, because if anyone on that grid gets the opportunity to drive for a team like Red Bull or Ferrari, not that I'm saying you got an offer from Ferrari, but if you got an offer from a really, really top team, you know, especially at his age, you kind of figure, why not? You know, like he doesn't really have much left to lose. I mean, he should just go for it, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm very thankful he re-signed with Aston Martin, because I think that's a team that is built to work for him, and that's a team where he really shines and proves like all the ability, getting the most out of what's given to him. But I would love to see him compete at the very, very front, but maybe it's just not realistic now, with how the driver market has kind of ended up in the end.
Yeah, fair enough. So yeah, I mean, I haven't got anything more to add on that, unless Callum or Oscar have anything else to add themselves on Alonso. And yeah, I think in terms of news in general, then I feel that might be all the major ones we've covered. So,
I think we can certainly expect there to be more news in the coming weeks and months with how the driver market is going to be shaping up, and obviously, well, with the news just breaking that Adrian Newey and leaving Red Bull, and there could be more to come, as we said, from that Red Bull in terms of the internal kind of civil war that's been going on. So I guess we'll certainly keep the listeners updated. But I'd say for now that's more or less the big headlines that have been that we've seen in F1 since the last news episode, which was about a month ago.
Yep. So yeah, I think that kind of wraps it up for this episode. Then, obviously, it was just mainly to do with Adrian Newey leaving. That was the biggest headline to come out of recent news. But yeah, thank you for Callum and Oscar for joining today and discussing all the latest news that's happened. Obviously, next up we'll most likely be having the preview for the Miami Grand Prix, and yeah, we'll catch up with you then. So yeah, thank you for listening.